Why can't I stop playing Team Fortress 2? I've written 2 iterations of this essay so far because there's just so much that I love about this game that I keep getting sidetracked. I think almost everything I've written can be summed up in one word though. Casual. Team Fortress 2 has a ton of esports potential, but at its heart it's a casual game. I don't really like multiplayer much at all anymore. While there are plenty of amazing multiplayer games I've sunk in tons of time into, I'm almost invariably in a worse mood after a session than before it. That's because just about every multiplayer game, TF2 included, basically boils down to play until you're frustrated. At least, that's how it always goes for me. Whether it's because of other players or myself having an off day, I always just play until I'm frustrated, and that often undermines all the high points of a good session. Team Fortress 2 has a lot of frustration to it. The fact that it's free to play means you have a lot of clueless people picking specialist classes that we already have 3 of, and people vote-kicking each other for sport, and jerks who end every sentence with the word faggot. But it's so much easier to shrug off than in other multiplayer games that interest me, and again, that's because of that one key word, casual. It doesn't matter if you bottom score, or if you lose because your team had 5 snipers, or if you decide to go Market Gardener Soldier. You won't be matched with worse players if you do poorly, and as a result, I have a lot more fun than in a game like Counter-Strike or League of Legends, where every kill and every death matters to some degree. If I see a player join and then pick Spy when half the team is already Spy, I give a sigh and a chuckle. If I see somebody buy a Negev when we're on an eco round in CSGO, it's just frustrating and not at all funny. So what makes TF2 a quote-unquote casual game in the first place, and other than a ranking system, what separates a casual game from a hardcore one? Almost every TF2 match you play will be about 1/3 people with decent scores and 2/3 people with scores below 20 or 30 depending on the map. Sounds annoying, right? Well, it can be, but it mostly just enables you to do some ridiculous strategies like dual Ubersaw medics or KGB heavy. These are things that you would never really consider in competitive mode, but they have a strange tendency to work out really well in casual TF2. Weird, funny, and unorthodox strategies are the bread and butter of TF2, and they're the reason the loadout system is so great. It's easy to get caught up in the metagame of using particular items almost exclusively, but when you break out of the metagame, you have a gigantic world of hilarious possibilities in front of you. However, the main thing that separates TF2 from other multiplayer shooters with a more competitive atmosphere is the fact that skill is used to enhance strategies, rather than strategy being used to enhance skill as in Counter-Strike. A soldier with the high ground is almost always going to beat a pyro with the low ground, no matter how good the pyro is, or how new the soldier is. If the soldier happens to be skilled, he can kill them faster and while avoiding more damage, but that's all. It doesn't matter if you have lightning fast internet, a badass mouse, a 144Hz monitor, you just need to know how to play your class, or use your loadout in a clever way. Strategy trumps skill, so I don't have to worry about playing on the couch, or having aim that's a little shaky that day. There's another major thing that separates TF2 from the rest: randomness and unpredictability. Obviously random crits aren't fair or balanced, but they are funny. Say what you will about a random crit rocket that won or lost you the game, it's almost always amusing to watch 4 people get instantly destroyed completely outside of their control, whether you're on the receiving end or the attacking end. The same goes for Spy. While Spy isn't random, and is arguably one of the hardest classes to do well with, Spy is completely unpredictable. It's never satisfying to get insta-jibbed from behind, but it is amusing, and in a perfect world, would make both ends of the knife laugh. In reality, most people hate Spy and get pissed whenever they're stabbed. But I almost always think it's funny to imagine that while we're all in the heat of the moment throwing ordnance at each other, there's some sneaky Frenchman running around laughing at how stupid we look. Spy is a master of comedy, and is, in my opinion, the best thing to happen to multiplayer shooters since the rocket jump. I've heard it said before that you can tell if you have a good game if it's fun to die in it. Team Fortress 2 pulls that off flawlessly by making almost every death funny. This is a game where it's tradition to kill yourself every time you lose at the rock paper scissors taunt, and where the kill feed will happily pronounce fish kill whenever a scout happens to get one. When you die, the game freeze frames and shows you an arrow labeled your spleen while the enemy says something nasty about you. Soldiers will rocket jump just a bit too enthusiastically and fall clumsily to their death. Heavies and pyros will feel like such badasses until they overextend and get wiped out in a second. Snipers will find themselves locked in a cramped room with a tiny, annoying flying man with a shotgun. Demo Knights will run screaming into a group of enemies just to run screaming the opposite direction a second later. Pyros will airblast 5 people off a cliff, Spies will get looked at funnily one too many times and go from silent assassin to screaming marshmallow, and it's all just so damn funny. I could spectate a casual game of TF2 and it would be like watching an episode of Tom and Jerry. It's the perfect game to put the Benny Hill theme over. I could, and probably will, write an entire essay about the amazing characters of Team Fortress 2, but suffice it to say, every one of them ends up feeling like a friend you've known for years. You can depend on them to act a certain way in both gameplay and personality, and getting to know these guys is a huge part of what makes this game so endearing. There's a reason that people still make source filmmaker videos about these characters to this day. When I'm not playing psychological horrors or deep, thought-provoking walking sims, or games with powerful and interesting stories or themes that I can't stop thinking about, Team Fortress 2 is the perfect break to come between. I'll always be able to boot up TF2, laugh and have fun with strangers for an hour, and then go back to colder games. I don't consider myself a fan of multiplayer, but in the past 2 years I've been playing it, Team Fortress 2 has become like a warm, cozy, familiar, and trustworthy home to me.
Don't do it, pal.
Do not do it!
Hey, calm down here. You listening? Just, oh God! Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God! My blood! He punched out all my blood!
You call that breaking my spine? You red team ladies wouldn't know how to break a spider. My spine!